Hey, welcome to Coach's Corner, everybody. Thanks for watching the show. I'm your host, Coach Paul Tripoli, Coach Trip to my players, along with my friend, Coach Mark Hobley here.
Peace.
PHS, longtime teacher and coach, a good friend of mine. And we got a really special guest, Coach Jackie Sherrill. Coach, I guess everybody calls you Coach now. They forget the old playing days.
I think so.
Coach, I want to start at the beginning. Okay. You grew up, I think you were born in Oklahoma, but talk about your mom and your dad and your siblings.
Well, unfortunately, my father moved away when I was born, so I really didn't know my father until later in life. So I was, uncharacteristic growing up in Duncan, Oklahoma, which is the home of Halliburton oil seamen, and that's where they started. My father was the manager at the plant. Matter of fact, he was, in college in 1922. Not too many people were in college in 1922, but
wow.
Make a long story short, he took off to California, and so I was one of those kids that ran the neighborhoods, and thank goodness I was smart enough not to get in trouble. I'm sure I got in trouble, but not enough to make anything. But and then went through the ninth grade and moved to Biloxi, Mississippi in between the summer of my 9th, 10th grade, and I graduated from Biloxi. And at that time, I was fortunate to be offered a scholarship by Coach Bryant to go to Alabama.
Gosh, talk about that experience. Talk about that recruiting experience and what it was like and what Coach Bryant said.
Well, I was recruited by LSU, Tulane, Southern Miss, Mississippi State, Georgia Tech, Oklahoma, and Coach Bryant. And I was going to Oklahoma because growing up in Oklahoma, that was their long run at 48 wins, and they lost it at Notre Dame. They had won 48 games in a row. And so I grew up watching Oklahoma play.
Right.
But I was going, so visited all the other schools. It didn't make any difference. And Coach Bryant came down. They were getting ready to play in the Sugar Bowl. So they came to Biloxi to train the week before the Sugar Bowl. Coach Bryant came down and spent 2 hours with me and, met me at the high school stadium. And he talked because they were there looking at the facilities and never asked me to come. And that was different, completely different from the other coaches that were recruiting me. Just talked about Alabama, talked about the players, and that was completely different. So that made a big impression on me. And so when I went to visit, my official visit, they had the wrong scouting report. Growing up in Biloxi, you grew up real fast, and so you're a lot older than your age back then. And so when I visited for official for Alabama. They put me with a kid from Texas, and he took me to the bowling alley. Now this was homecoming weekend, where you had all the sororities and fraternities decorating their house and having fun. So after about an hour, I said, I think I'm tired. Let's go back. So he took me back, and then the other kid that was with me, we took off and went to the fraternity and sorority houses that night. So whatever scouting report they had it wrong.
Oh my gosh. So what was your first year? 61?
No, 62.
62. Yeah, oh my gosh.
They won it all in 61, and then they lost to Georgia Tech in 62 to keep from winning it all.
Gosh, you played with Joe Namath, Kenny Stabler, Ray Perkins, Pat Trammell, who is Coach Bryant's favorite player of all time, Pat Trammell. I think Pat, he was there. Bama lost 3 games, and I think he missed all 3 games. Is that true, Coach?
Yes. Pat Trammell. Pat Trammell I remember, Pat let the language fly. And make a long story short, that week, Coach Bryant had sat down with him at lunch, and he was actually, scolding or talking to him about his language, and all of a sudden he let it fly. So, Pat was very colorful, but he was a great quarter. He didn't have Namath or Stabler's or other quarterbacks' talent, but the talent he had, he could win. And, there's one thing Coach Bryant did do. He took players and made them better players. If you were good, you became an excellent player. If you were great, excellent, you became a great player. But he could take players, and the old saying, he could take yours and beat you, it was true. There's no question.
Yeah. He was a master psychologist. He was a master psychologist, wasn't he, Coach?
Yeah, way before his time. I mean, now I was probably one of the first coaches to use psychologists to come in and help. They didn't talk to the team, but through me, I talked to the team. Today you have coaches that are hiring full time, and Nick Saban spent, I don't know how much, but he had one. The guy came out of Pittsburgh, and I was there every week with the players. There's no question that it helps, and the ability. But Coach Bryant, every week he would come up with some kind of story relating to the game. And the funniest one was we were playing, he really got involved when we played a big game. But when we were playing somebody that we were going to beat, should beat, he didn't really get excited and really press as hard. But I remember one story, the line is, what do you do when your wife runs off with the milkman? I mean, you're trying to figure out what the hell is he saying.
Coach, I didn't know what the hell he was talking about until I was 60 years old, okay? Until it happened to me, I didn't understand what he was talking about, okay? So that all came back to me, it all came back. Like, whoa.
He mellowed a lot when you got there.
Yes, he did. I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, there were 67 freshmen, and there were only 7 of us that were seniors together. So,
wow.
Yeah. I always told
60 of them.
I always told Coach Stallings, I said, Coach, you had Coach Bryant, but I had Coach Bryant and you.
Oh my gosh. Talk about those early years. You guys won 2 titles your junior and senior year, but they went undefeated in 66 and got robbed out of the title.
They did. That was when the tie and Michigan State, Notre Dame tied, and it should have gone to Alabama, but it didn't. They were the only undefeated team in the country. They should have had won, 3 years in a row, 64, 65, and 66. Yeah.
Is that why Coach Bryant hated ties so much? I know he hated ties. He always talked about it like it was like kissing your sister. I never knew what he meant.
He always, tying is like kissing your sister. No, he didn't like it. We played this probably a great story about Coach Bryant. We were playing Tennessee in Birmingham. Score was tied as Sloan fumbled the ball inside the 10 a couple of times. He put Stabler in. Stabler moved us all the way down to the 40-yard line, and it was 4th down. So Coach Bryant had me and David ready to go in and kick a field goal to win the game. And as we're running, we have assistant coach running down the sideline hollering, clock play, clock play. So Kenny broke the huddle, went to the line of scrimmage, and we ran off, and he threw the ball out of bounds to stop the clock, but it was 4th down.
Mm.
So in the old Legion field, you had the gate, the chain link fence, and they had the stadium. It's probably about 6 foot wide. And Singlai, the manager, left the keys on the field. So Saint met Coach Bryant. He said, "Coach, I'm sorry, I left the keys on the field." Coach Bryant makes his way up to the door. He hits it one time, steps back, and knocks the door off the hinges. And so we go in as players, and then the coaches were coming in, and he ran the coaches all out. He said, this is the first time I can honestly say that we, the coaches, lost this game. I apologize. He turned around, went out, got in the police car, took off. Didn't talk to the coaches, and he always, or the press, he always called the coaches and told them, ask them how the players played so he could talk about them the next day on the TV show. Didn't call them on Sunday. We're playing LSU the next week, Baton Rouge. Never would play LSU, but TV forced him to do it, and he said, "I'll do it, but we'll play during the day. Won't play a night game." So never had. Well, he had the first staff meeting on Monday morning, and the coaches filed in for the meeting, sat down. He looked up at him and says, "If we don't beat LSU, pack your bags." Never had a staff meeting, never talked to a coach, and it was 35-0 going into the 4th quarter.
He would get, oh my gosh, everybody was scared of him. Everybody was scared of him. They were scared of Coach Bryant. He knew such detail, though. He would go into, he would be so prepared, right, well, Coach?
He made all practices. When we first moved into the dorm, the new dorm, he stayed every night. He stayed Sunday through Thursday, but he made out every practice. So when you went into the coaches meeting, you were assigned this drill, whatever. He didn't tell you how to coach, but he made out every practice.
Wow.
With the coaches. And
Coach, somebody told me that he also made every substitution. That never happens nowadays.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's amazing.
On Saturday mornings, when I was able to GA for him, on Saturday morning, when he had the staff meeting, he would go in detail, the players, the substitutes, but he would go in detail about all different scenarios that could happen in a game, what we would do. Now, he was extremely smart and very prepared in detail. And, he was he could say things that would make players so mad that they would play a hell of a lot better. And,
how to push your buttons.
I got it one time. We were playing Georgia Tech. I believe Georgia Tech could have been, no, it was Tennessee in Birmingham. And we're on Friday practice, just walkthroughs. And we called him up and he says, if we have to play Sherrill tomorrow, we'll get our ass kicked. So that's all I thought about that whole time. So
Coach, what position were you playing? You played 7 different positions.
Yeah, well, at that time I was playing fullback linebacker because I think that was my sophomore year.
Yeah.
And how I got to start, Coach Stallings tells this story. Eddie Vesparelli was the starting linebacker, fullback. He was a senior. I was a sophomore. Freshmen couldn't play back then.
Right.
And so we're getting ready to play Georgia, our opening game. And we're out on Thursday. We're on the goal line. Coach Stallings put the ball on the 1-yard line, and Eddie Vesparelli calls goal line out. Coach Stallings comes unglued, jerks him out, throws me in. We only have 2 calls: goal line out, goal line in. I damn sure knew it wasn't goal line out. So I called goal line in, make the play. So that's how I got to start as a sophomore at Alabama.
Wow. Holy cow. Yeah, they would test you. They would test you right away. You played 7 positions. Did that help you as a coach, playing 7 positions yourself?
Oh, yes. Well, how that came about, I'm in my room. Coach Bryant never came to our rooms. And it was Monday night. This was Georgia weekend of my junior year. And Coach Bryant comes in, and I'm scrambling, trying to square up whatever I had on my desk. And he says, "Can you play tight end?" I said, "Yes, sir, I'll try." And he looked at me and he said, "Blank, I know you'll try. Can you play?" And I wasn't going to say no. I said,
he had a way with words, man. Yes, sir, I'll try. I don't want to hear try.
Yeah, I used that for the rest of the coaching. Anytime I asked a kid, "Can you do it?" and he said, "I'll try," I said, "I know you'll try. Can you do it or not?"
Oh my God. How many times have you used Coach Bryant's film? I did it in high school. I used so much of his words, what to say when you're behind. Even Coach Stallings, hey, Coach Stallings on the show, they wrote a book in 1961, How to Build a Championship Football Team. Coach Stallings says he wrote 95% of it.
Oh, he did. There wasn't any question.
But Coach Bryant was just so much to learn from. Hey, congratulations on getting inducted a couple years ago into the Alabama Hall of Fame, Coach.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
What an honor, man. What was some of your greatest moments as a player, winning 2 titles?
Those were, but just being able to understand later in life, at that time, but you had fun. Back then, going to Alabama with the students, you got to interact. I was able, this funny story too, we had one of the players ended up with a Corvette, and I had a Chevrolet Caprice, and he had a Corvette. And in scrimmage one Saturday, Coach Bryant hollered at him and said, "You don't deserve a tricycle." And that night, he comes to my room with his keys, and we swapped cars. So I had a Corvette my senior year in college.
The other guy got the Chevette. Oh my God, Coach, that's
He
beautiful
was not going to let Coach Bryant see him drive a Corvette.
You don't deserve it.
Holy cow, Coach. That's a great story. Walter Lewis came on the show. We talk about him when Coach Bryant cut my roommate from the tower because he was so out of shape. That was beautiful. Everybody was like shocked that I'm the only one smiling, dancing around because he was a terrible roommate.
Yeah, well, Coach Bryant would always come out to practice, 5 to 10 minutes earlier than anybody else. He'd just go out and play by himself. And when we'd be out sometimes early too, and we'd sit on the concrete seats or benches. And Coach Bryant, if he came out humming, "We shall gather at the river," he didn't want to go to practice. It's not going to be fun.
It's going to be one of those marathon long gut checks he like to do. All right, Coach, let's talk about your great coaching career. Washington State, 1976. Of course, the University of Pittsburgh, 77 to 81. Texas A&M, where you started the 12th man tradition, which I think is amazing. We're going to talk about that in a second. Mississippi State for 14 years. Gosh, Coach, what a career. Let's talk about A&M because I'm as a walk-on myself. I always followed you when that happened. Talk about how you started the 12th man kickoff tradition at Texas A&M and how did it really start with all walk-ons?
Yes, we had.
Wow. Hey, let's give a hand for Coach on that.
Yeah.
Shit, huh? Holy
But
mackerel.
we had, I would go and work on the bonfire, the student bonfire. And one night I came after practice, after meetings and everything, it was probably 11, 12 at night. I came by, and one of the red pots, that means that people that the students that actually build the bonfire, they had a small bonfire, a 55-gallon drum, and he was beating the drum with the accent. It was about 20 yards from the stack.
Uh-huh.
So I walk up and say hello. He won't even look at me. He's looking at the fourth stack. So the junior red pots that they handpicked to take their place for the next year were up there on the fourth stack. He stopped beating the drum. The kid would sliding down the stack. He's probably cutting his hands. But anyway, he runs over, bends over, and the guy slats him 3 times with the axe handle on the, three times. And he turned to him and said, "Take your best shot. That means you get one more." So when he hit him, the axe handle broke. And then he slat 3 more times, which was a total of 7. And I knew what that felt like. Going through a club, you knew what that felt like. Matter of fact, we had 2 slats left on Saturday morning. And I took one, my knees hit the top of a coat box, and I said, "That's it. I am not taking another one. It's not anybody here big enough to make me either." And I walked out, and one of the seniors came out and said, "I'll give you the last slat." He talked me into it. I'm telling you, I knew what that felt like. And I knew, and the kid had no expression, nothing. There's 40,000 students. I can find kids that are this tough that I can teach them to cover a kickoff.
That crazy though.
We ran an ad, and the ad was in the student newspaper, and it was no experience required.
Wow.
We had 252 sign up for the first night, and 2 of them were females. But anyway, we had 200, and we whittled that down to 40. And same thing as you do in a combine. The kids would do drills, kids would run 40s, and whittle it down to 40. They went through spring practice, and 30 minutes prior to practice, they had open field tackling, went through practice just like the dummies. And then after practice, they've spent 30 minutes covering kickoffs. So
wow.
In the fall, we'd only take 20. So even though you made the 40 and went out to spring practice, you still only 20 made it. And
Right.
So we had 20 guys on the kickoff team
To rotate in the 11 guys.
And
like 2 deep.
Their average was 12.5. And I looked 2 years ago, I looked up in Alabama, I had the top at 16 or 18 point something.
Whoa. The walk-ons did a better job by 4 yards than Alabama's kickoff coverage.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Did they think you were crazy, or what did the coaches say? Were they all on board?
Yeah, RC Slocum looked at me. He said, "Coach, I think you fell off that stack." And, the only one that understood was Curly Hallman. And I wish I'd known how important it was to the student body. I had no idea, but it was. The student body would bring signs for the 12th man guys that, you look at it, they were either in the corps with them, they were roommates, they were,
right.
Date buddies, they were drinking buddies. I mean,
yep.
So it was a bigger deal than I really ever thought it was.
What a brilliant
Exactly.
idea, Coach,
Exactly.
man. I want to say, God, that is a walk-on, man. That's a beautiful tribute to.
The furthest one was like 30 yards, and no one ever crossed the 50. And Bo Jackson in the Cotton Bowl ran it out to the 43-yard line, but no one else ever crossed the 30-yard line.
Holy cow.
That's great. That's awesome.
Coach, I was talking about this earlier with Mike Woschick, a 6-time Super Bowl champion. He's on this Saturday's podcast. And we talked about years ago, you had to teach X's and O's and fundamentals and technique and not toughness and intensity. Now it's just the opposite. You got to teach toughness and intensity, and you don't have to teach his fundamentals as much.
Yeah, well, fundamentals, you can go to practice, and people all the time ask about when is the right age or right time for your kids to start playing. And I always would say, one, if they want to play. If they're playing for you, it's not going to work. If they want to play, when you go to practice, and if they are not doing any techniques or fundamentals, they're just lined up running plays, then you don't let your kid play.
Right.
Because if he's not going to be taught fundamentals, and that's in every sport, whether it's soccer or basketball, baseball, if there's no fundamentals or techniques, don't let your kid go play.
Great. Some of the greatest players that you coach, Coach. Did you have in Pittsburgh? Did you have Dan Marino and Tony Dorsett?
I recruited Tony, and of course, I was coaching the other side of the ball. And Tony, freshman year, we're playing Boston College. He comes to the sideline, and he kind of not wanting to go back in. And I said, Tony, get your ass back in there. And anyway. And then Danny recruited Danny. Danny could have played Major League Baseball if he had wanted.
Wow.
He was really talented. He wanted to play college baseball and football. And the NCAA arbitrarily came out with the interpretation, if you sign a Major League Baseball contract, then you have to pay your way through school to play football or any sport.
Mm-hmm.
Which was crazy.
Yes.
Coach, you were a GA at Bama in '66, a DB coach at Iowa State, defensive coordinator, of course, at Pitt, and then the head coach. Did it help you to play all different positions when you coached? And what was your favorite position to coach?
Well, linebackers.
Linebackers?
But, playing fullback and linebacker mostly, and then you played defensive end, you played tight end, you played Coach Bryant. When Leroy Jordan left my freshman year, Coach Bryant tried to make me a center, but my arms wasn't long enough, or the torso. So anyway, he kept me at fullback linebacker, because back then you played both ways. So you had fullback, center were the linebackers. The guards were the defensive tackles, the ends were defensive ends, and of course you had one substitution, and that usually was the quarterback that you substituted for somebody. But then you couldn't substitute. My sophomore year, you had the first and fourth down, you could substitute two people. On second and third down, you could substitute as many as you wanted. And then the next year, the junior year, it was full substitution.
Dang, I didn't know that.
Wow. Coach, did you ever interview for the Alabama head coaching job anytime in your career?
Yes. When Coach, unfortunately, when he retired, there were three. I had coached in the East-West game, and I was his assistant. Bo Schamblecker was on the other side. And at that time, that's when I went to Texas A&M, but I went as the AD and head coach. Coach Bryant, in his room, said, I'm going to retire. And he said that to me before, too. We were at a convention in D.C., and he did. interviewed quite a few, John McKay and others, to take his job, and they didn't want it. So that's when he decided to stay. But at that time, he said there's three guys, and it was Ray, Steve, and myself were the ones that he was looking to take the head coaching job. When I went to A&M, I took myself out of the hat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Coach Stallings, what a great man he is. Tell a story about Babes. I like to tell the story when they were talking about suspending Namath, and Coach Bryant went around the room and asked all the coaches what to do, what they thought they should do. Did you hear that story, Coach?
Well, that was when President Kennedy was assassinated. We were playing Miami, so we canceled the game. And we even had curfew on Saturday and Sunday. So Saturday night after curfew, we had like 7 guys went to the diner, and Hoot Owl Hicks was the manager, and Hoot Owl had a loud
I remember Hoot
voice.
Owl.
And make a long story short, the owner called Coach Bryant at 2:30 in the morning. And he called every one of them in. Joe was the last one, but he asked every one of them, were you drinking? Every one of them said, no, sir. Well, he asked Joe, and Joe said, yes, sir. And that's when he put it in front of the team, the coaching staff, and all of them said, let him stay, except for Coach Stallings.
Yep. Yeah.
But that happened.
So Coach Bryant said, all right, we're going with Coach Stallings said.
But the story is Coach Bryant suspended Joe, but Miss Mary Harmon had him in the basement of their house and told Coach Bryant, Joe's in the basement, he's going to stay there. But I don't know if that's a fact or not. But
yeah, I think it is. Yeah, then the coaches were assistant coaches back then would get bonuses for winning the bowl games. That's why all the assistants said let them play. And then Steve Sloan comes in and they beat him anyway. Steve Sloan, so they all got their bonus, and Steve Sloan played really well the bowl game.
Well, Coach Bryant took care of the players. That's one thing you learn, playing for him, and he also made sure. You were disciplined. There was no question. But Joe and he suspended Kenny as well, and Joe and Kenny. But he taught me one thing: you discipline players, but you don't get rid of a great player, and because you can't replace them.
Right. I always thought Kenny Stabler. I liked how he used to reframe a pressure situation into a fun challenge. And I talked to Kenny years ago when I first got into coaching, and I learned that from him, that it was a good tool to take the pressure off the guys. And I thought Kenny always had really good poise.
He did. There's no question. Of course, Kenny was a fun-loving guy, and he was really a tremendous athlete. The best athlete I've ever coached or played was Joe Namath.
Right.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Whatever you wanted it to do, he would beat you. If you wanted to pitch quarters, you wouldn't beat him. If you wanted to play basketball, you would not get a shot off if he guards you.
Wow.
He was.
I heard that. I heard about that.
And on the grass, he could run. We had one of the kids that actually won the indoor 60. Back then, 50-yard.
Yeah.
And he couldn't outrun Joe on grass.
Oh my gosh, is that right? Holy cow, Coach!
Joe was awful quick, and and the one that stood out more than anything else, he tied a tire to the goalpost, and he would swing. The tire would be swinging, and at 35 yards, he could throw the ball through the tire.
Holy
Swinging.
mackerel. Through the swinging tire. Wow. Coach, man, we could go on for hours and tell stories, man. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for spending the time with us here in Pensacola, here in my little show, Coach's Corner. God bless you, Coach, man. This is so proud. The positive impact you had on thousands and thousands of people.
Well, thank you very much, and roll tide.
Roll tide, Coach. So long. Talk to you soon.
Good.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks. Wow.
Incredible.
Holy cow. Incredible stories, man. Unbelievable. I hope everybody out there enjoyed that. Jackie Sherrill, just a great player, great coach, and it was a joy to have him on. Thanks for watching. Hobbs, thanks for joining me.
Yes, sir.
Have a great sports weekend, everybody.
Peace.
Stay tuned for these important messages. Without these great sponsors, this just wouldn't be possible. So long.
Arbitrium Consulting for all your fencing, landscaping, pressure washing, tree trimming needs. Call 850-483-0350 for your free estimates. Serving Pensacola, Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, Destin, Perdido, Gulf Shores, Foley, and the entire Gulf Coast. Arbitrium Consulting is owner-operated, fully licensed and insured. Call today, 850-483-0350, the official landscaper of Coach's Corner.
Hey, Bama fans, this is Will Moore, president of the Pensacola Bama Club. You can find us at PensacolaBamaClub.com. We are your official alumni chapter in the Pensacola and surrounding areas. Membership is available to all alumni and all Bama fans, so come see us at one of our many events throughout the year. Our Bama football watch parties are the next best thing to being in Bryant-Denny Stadium. We even serve authentic stadium hot dogs. Membership, event, and contact information will be found on our website at PensacolaBamaClub.com. Roll Tide.
For 30 years, you have seen the orange Beck signs all over the Gulf Coast listing a property for sale or lease. Beck Partners is your trusted advisor in commercial real estate, property management, commercial and personal insurance. Senior Vice President David Valletto has been with Beck Partners since 1989. Take advantage of his wealth of knowledge by calling him today at 982-7352. 982-7352. Extensive experience in all aspects of leasing, sales, management, and site selection will make sure your expectations are exceeded.
Did you know there's a place where you can get good neighbor service and surprisingly great rates on your home and auto insurance? Yep, and that place is, ta-da, State Farm. Here's the deal. State Farm agent Will Rentschler is your go-to agent in Pensacola, Florida for the service you deserve at the price that you want. So stop shopping around. State Farm agent Will Rentschler has you covered. Call 850-433-4678 for your surprisingly great rates today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Legal disclaimer, individual premiums will vary by customer. All applicants subject to State Farm underwriting requirements.
My name is Steve Reynolds. I'm the manager and owner of Cordova Lanes, and we help keep your mind out of the gutter. Cordova Lanes is part of the community of Pensacola. Being here for 43 years, we've entertained more people than any other bowling center in the city. We sell fun for a living. Cordova Lanes is located at 2111 Airport Boulevard in Pensacola, behind Cordova Mall. Come on out and see us at Cordova Lanes Bowling Center. Thank you.